Recording in progress.
Hello, welcome. I forgot to record the live workshop. I know. So I am re-recording this workshop for those of you who were interested in the replay. And I will do my best to remember questions that came up in the live workshop, and we'll try to be very thorough in answering the questions that did come up in the previous workshop. One thing that might come in handy is if you have anything like a myofascial release ball, a tennis ball works. This is a yoga tune-up ball. I have two sizes, either size will work depending. If you don't have anything like that, you can use a little washcloth folded up. You can also use a pair of socks rolled up. I have used a yoga strap in the past where I roll it up to whatever. What's nice about that is that I can adjust the size to what's most comfortable. Okay, so you can gather whatever you need and make your way back. We're going to begin with a little grounding exercise to really draw in all of our attention and awareness, to bring presence into our bodies and how we're feeling. So wherever you are, you can place your left hand on your chest, your right hand on your belly. If it feels comfortable, you can close your eyes, or just let your eyelids be heavy and find something not moving to look at. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. And a sigh, let it go. Letting go of any ruminations of the past. And not reaching toward the future. Being present in this moment. Present in our bodies. Existing here for the next hour, hour and a half or so. Go ahead and take another big breath in. Invite it all the way down into the belly. Nice, long, controlled, slow exhale. Give yourself a mental note of gratitude right now for showing up for yourself. Recognize that showing up for yourself means it's easier to show up better for those you love. It's easier to show up for your own life. Recognizing that your healing, your journey matters. And anything you feel, experience along the way is valid. Knowing that all of you is welcome here. The unfinished parts, the messy parts, the parts of ourselves that we kind of tuck away. And when you're ready, you can begin to open your eyes. Maybe take a moment and look away from the screen and just take your environment in. Maybe you notice something that you didn't notice before. Without judgment or criticism, I know it's easy if you're in your own house to find a dust bunny or a mess and think, oh my goodness. But just allow it to exist. Evidence of life lived around you. Okay. Let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. There we go. Welcome to the Reclaim Your Root Pelvic Wellness Workshop. I'm so glad you're here. Even if you're here for the replay, I am so grateful that our paths have crossed. I recognize your humanness. And I recognize that we all have a reason for being here. And I want to honor that. My name is Megan. I use the pronouns she, her, hers. I live in a tiny house in St. Helens, Oregon. I live with my partner, Luke, and our two furry companions, Hank and Moonwa. I am a 500-hour plus yoga certified teacher. I am accessible yoga certified, which means I can teach beginners and all bodies and backgrounds. I've taught cancer patients and patients who are in bed and can't get out of bed due to pain. I am pelvic health yoga certified, an integrative pelvic health facilitator, and an affiliate and member of Pelvic Health Professionals. I record all my online offerings in this studio space in a shop building next to the tiny house. I'm really grateful for the honor and privilege to be able to share the work that I do in this capacity. I am not a doctor or a physical therapist. I have a plethora of resources, and I am happy to help you find one if you decide that that is the next step for you. My job is to pass on the wisdom and knowledge that has been given to me to give you tools to heal yourself and to guide you back to yourself again and again. Only you know what it's like to exist in your body, and you are going to be your best healer. Even if you call in the assistance of a professional health practitioner, the better you know yourself, the better you can advocate for yourself and get a proper diagnosis sooner. All of the containers that I hold are confidential. And what that means is that you can share anything that you learn from your own experience, anything that I share. You're welcome to share your own experience if you want to. But in all of my live workshops and virtual group gatherings and live gatherings, I ask that you please respect other people's privacy and do not share anything that anyone else shares or share your projection or perception of what someone else may be experiencing. Trauma is stored in the body. And trauma can be a variety of things. There's little t and big T trauma. Trauma can be something like falling on your tailbone as a child. It can be a pelvic injury. It can be something like a painful period, a doctor's visit, miscarriage, painful sex, consensual sex that may not have felt consensual in your body. Birth, whether vaginal or cesarean, abortion, and many other ways that we experience trauma in our pelvic region. And because of this, I want to acknowledge that some of the material I share today may feel triggering at times. I am acutely aware that many of us come to this work with our own experiences of trauma. This requires that you be so kind and gentle and compassionate with ourselves, with yourself. Please take breaks as you need and honor the messages of your nervous system. And what that looks like, this is recorded. So you can come back to this and take it in bite-sized pieces as you feel you're able to. And recognizing that nervous system regulation, if you're shallow, your breath gets shallow and your heart starts beating quickly, acknowledge that, recognize these feelings, let yourself be curious about them. And if you feel that you need to come back to this another time and just process what you've already experienced, then just know that you are supported and encouraged here always to do what is best for you. In all of my virtual workshops and immersions classes, I don't have any rules. Of course, I love to see your faces, but it is not required that you have your camera on. Okay. So why is pelvic health so important? Pelvic health and wellness is essential to our overall well-being. Usually pelvic wellness comes into our awareness because of pain, dysfunction, discomfort, confusion. And if it has come into your awareness from any of these reasons, any of these symptoms, then you understand how this can seep into our mental health, our emotional health, our relationships. The pelvis is the center of the musculoskeletal system. When it is off, it affects the entire body. And this is both physically and energetically. And what I mean by that, so I'll give you a visual for visual learners. Here we have the pelvis. It is the center of the body. When we have these asymmetries, maybe we hike our hip, or maybe we cross our legs the same way every time we sit. Or maybe we just have natural, normal holding patterns that we all have. We all have asymmetries. But when this is off, when there's a dysfunction in the center of our body like this, it affects the entire body. And I'm going to exaggerate here, but if I'm tighter on my right side, then I'm going to have my left shoulder higher than my right. I may have a leg longer than the other leg. And this is the same energetically. This is our foundation, our root. Our pelvis is our root and connection to our sense of self and safety. When we are disconnected, we can feel ungrounded and anxious. And I'll talk about this energetically for a moment. You might be familiar with the chakra system, which is a system of energy in Eastern life sciences. And we have the root chakra, which is found at the base of our pelvis, or Muladhara. What chakra means is a ball of energy. And even modern science recognizes that where these chakras lie in the body, they see ganglia of nerve centers connecting to send messages and communicate with the body, with the rest of the body. And energy flows up. So when our root chakra is imbalanced, is blocked, it affects all of the rest of the chakras above it. Our sacral chakra, our solar plexus, our heart chakra, our throat chakra, our third eye chakra, and our crown chakra. And they're not, without getting into the nitty-gritty of the Eastern philosophy. Yeah, that's enough about that for now. It's just I'm driving home the point that when our root, we're disconnected in a lot of ways, not just one. 1 out of 3 women and 1 out of 8 men will experience pelvic floor dysfunction in their lifetime. And so I like to, and I do my best to think about this in a gender neutral way, because this affects all of us. We all have pelvises, but I know that my experience is as a woman, my experience in the world is as a woman. So I speak a lot from my own experience, but I also want to recognize that we all have our unique experiences with our pelvis and pelvic floor and with society at large, living in a patriarchal society. And all of us can experience the shame that comes from that dominant culture. Women are shamed for their menstruation, their sexuality, their vagina is said to be gross or whatever it may be, and men as well. If they have too much movement in their hips, it's considered to be too feminine. So may we all be healed and free. Most pelvic floor dysfunction can be prevented and or healed with an intuitive, integrative self-care practice. And what I mean by integrative is that it's holistic. How many of us have done a self-care practice, even a yoga teacher training, a fitness program, or whatever it is, and the pelvis and the pelvic floor is never brought up. It's not even talked about. That's what I'm talking about. It is such an integral part of how our body functions and how our body functions well, and it's ignored. And so what I do is I bring an entire full body intuitive self-care practice, integrative in that it integrates your entire being, your body, your mind, and your spirit. And I teach you how to tap into your own intuition, to find what you need for your self-care, to learn your body's messages, your body's needs, so you can feel that you're working with your body instead of at odds with it. 98% of people with low back pain have pelvic floor issues. That's a lot. The pelvic floor muscles are some of the first muscles to tense when we are in the sympathetic nervous system. And this is that fight, flight, freeze, fawn nervous system. And in our modern society, most of us operate in this nervous system, this nervous state. And we're on this hamster wheel and we don't know how to get off. Life is busy. There's always an emergency. Everything feels like it has to happen right now. There's a lot of overwhelm, anxiety. And our bodies cannot heal when we're in the sympathetic nervous system. When we feel this anxiety, this tightness in the chest, we're dysregulated. And dysregulation can look different for everyone. And so I encourage you to get to know what dysregulation looks and feels like in your own body. So we can then recognize when we're regulated and what that looks and feels like in our body. And we can gain tools to learn how to find regulation when we recognize we're in this dysregulated state. Most people carry too much tension in their pelvic floor, which can cause pelvic pain, leaking of urine and fecal matter, and more. To release shame and stigma around the pelvis, dominant culture has ignored and shamed this area, like I mentioned before. It's been over-sexualized for both men and women, and especially trans, non-binary, and people in the LGBTQIA community. It's been labeled as something as dirty or taboo. So many people suffer in silence because of this. And I want to share a little bit of history to give this work some more context. If you are to trace back your ancestral lineage, and I don't mean the last 5, 10, 20 years, I mean hundreds, thousands of years. Before the colonization of America, most, if not all, world cultures were earth-based. And what this looked like was a mutual respect and equality for both the masculine and the feminine. People recognized that there were different attributes from the masculine and feminine, and both were equal and necessary. Women were revered and honored. They were the wisdom keepers, the doulas, the midwives, the healers, the caretakers. I said the medicine women. When a woman aged and had gray, white, silver hair, it was like her crown of honor that showed wisdom. Wrinkles and depths in the skin was a sign of a life well lived. When women menstruated and bled, it was said or believed that their intuition was at their highest, and they would go away to rest and to receive wisdom messages. Science shows us now that when women are menstruating or bleeding, it's when the left and right hemisphere of the brain have the most connections. I also want to share, I'm reading this from In the Flow by Elisa Vitti. Unlock Your Hormonal Advantage and Revolutionize Your Life is the subtitle. But she talks about the difference between male and female brains. And the female has a bigger insula in the brain. This area which houses those gut feelings is bigger in women and indicates a higher ability to listen to our intuition. And I will say the same for non-binary folks. In indigenous cultures, they were referred to as two-spirit, and they were honored for their wisdom of this balancing of the masculine and the feminine. It wasn't until the 13th and 14th century when the patriarchy and colonization began to take root that 1 million women were murdered. They were accused of being witches because they worked with the earth and plant medicine to heal others, because they gathered with women, because their power of their cyclical nature wasn't understood. And then a lot of this knowledge of how to care for ourselves and care for our bodies was lost with these women. And then women weren't allowed to learn how to read, to practice medicine anymore. If you gathered with another woman, you were accused of being a witch and murdered. It turned mother against daughter. And nowadays, fast forward, we have mother-daughter issues, sisterhood wounds. We're pitted against each other in competition and comparison. And a lot of this wisdom has been lost. And this happened again with the colonization of America, with the indigenous tribes here. They were also earth-based, and a lot of the women were killed. And I want to say that our beliefs around our bodies matter, especially when it comes to healing. I have these 2 PubMed articles here that you can look up, and I'll just give you a brief explanation of what they are. The first is 2 control groups going in to get knee surgery. And I forget what it is exactly that they're getting knee surgery for, but they all have knee pain. And so one group goes in and gets the surgery done. The other group goes in, they put them under and just give them an incision on their knee, so it looks like they've got the surgery, they've gotten the surgery done. Everyone in both groups reported that their pain had gone away. The second article is a group of women who were housekeepers in a chain of hotels. They were asked about their health, their well-being. Most of them said that they were exhausted. They were overweight, and they didn't have time after work to exercise or to give themselves self-care or to eat well. Half of these women were taken aside and informed that what you're doing is really active work. You're moving up and down stairs. You're changing linens. You're on your feet walking all day. You are getting more exercise than is recommended for a healthy lifestyle. Over a period, I think, of 7 or 8 weeks, I don't remember exactly, the women who were told this, because in their mind, they were getting exercise, right? They had reported that they had more energy. They had lost weight, and their blood pressure, things like that, were more balanced out. How we believe, our beliefs around our body matters. And we all have that inner critic. We all have that. But recognizing the inner critic and having another voice that comes in with compassion and empathy, with kindness and love, is important, especially when it comes to healing. The Latin root word vagina means sheath, scabbard, or covering. Literally a sheath to someone's sword. The way we have been identified in this patriarchal society is to that pleases a man, that pleases a male penis. And it's the same with this, but for this tight pussy obsession, this Kegel obsession that our vaginas must be tight to please a man. This is this patriarchal society and dominant culture that we live in today that places these expectations on women's bodies to be perfect and to not age, to be thin and to not take up space. The Sanskrit, an ancient language that predates that of Latin and is recognized as one of the oldest recorded languages in the world. The Sanskrit word for vagina is yoni. Say that with me, yoni. And notice how that feels in your body as you say it. Notice the feeling of vagina when you say it, vagina. And then notice how it feels different when you relate to your body as yoni. Yoni translates as abode, nest, resting place, spring, and source of feminine generative power. It's two very different beliefs about our bodies. They have different feelings in our body. So let's get into the 4 pillars of pelvic health. The first pillar is information. There's another PubMed article. I believe this was done in either 2020 or 2021, so very recent. And the study showed that once receiving these people that had pelvic floor dysfunction, once they received information about their bodies and pelvic floor, they began to heal. And this was before treatment even began. We have been deprived of accurate information about our own bodies, especially our pelvic area. We have not been taught how to care for ourselves. And this has made pelvic suffering seem normal. You might even take a moment to reflect on your own relationship with your pelvis. If you menstruate, your relationship with your menstruation, your cycle. Take a nice deep breath. And a nice big exhale. Give your shoulders permission to soften away from the ears. Number 2 of the 4 pillars of pelvic health is the breath. And this picture over here is the respiratory diaphragm. This respiratory diaphragm lives right up underneath the low ribs, underneath the lungs. So like right here. And as we breathe in, take an inhale with me and visualize this respiratory diaphragm moves down. It vacuums air into the lungs and expands. It's a muscle, it gets wide. It gently massages and pushes the organs down into the pelvis. And as you exhale, it domes and moves back up into its place underneath the low ribs. And everything moves back into place. We take up to 27,000 breaths a day. And how many of those are we actually taking a good breath? Most of the time, our breath stays up here in the chest. Intentional breathing practices are some of the most effective and efficient exercises you can do for your pelvic and overall health and healing. Your breath can be healing. I know this is so foundational, but your breath is a thermometer for how your nervous system is doing. Again, if you have this shortness, shallow breath in the chest, and this tension, this constriction, that is a sign that you are dysregulated. And when you move into that rest and digest, your breath is easy, it's deep, it's relaxed. What's cool is that your respiratory diaphragm and pelvic floor work together as a team. They're besties. They're in sync, and they move in tandem with one another to support our every breath and movement. So breathe with me here. And I want you to imagine, so I have my respiratory diaphragm and here's my pelvic floor. And as you inhale, breathing deeply, inviting it all the way down into the pelvis, that respiratory diaphragm pushes the organs down and stretches out. The pelvic floor expands like a trampoline to create space for the organs. And as you exhale, everything domes back into place. They undulate together like a jellyfish swimming through the water. And take a few breaths with visualizing this as you inhale deeply through the nose. Get a sense, even if you don't feel it, imagine this expansion in your pelvic floor, your pelvis. Breathe into the belly. And as you exhale, everything moves back into place. Do 2 more with this visualization. Inhale, these jellyfish go wide and open. Everything moves down, down, down to your root. Exhale, everything lifts without any effort from you. This is automatic. It does this for you, whether you tell it to or not. And you might even notice from this mindful breathing, if anything has shifted for you, any of your energy or the way you feel. So the third pillar of pelvic health is posture. And I am not here to be a posture police. I'm not here to tell you that slouching is bad, because it's not. But how we carry our bodies matter. Just like how our beliefs around our bodies matter, so does the way we carry our bodies. And usually the way we believe or the beliefs that we carry about our bodies translates into how we carry physically our bodies. So what happens, again, slouching is not bad or wrong. It's getting stuck in this holding pattern, this slouched position that we want to look out for. Because when we're slouched, and even over exaggerating this slouch here, what happens, here's the pelvis, okay? Here's the front of the pelvis. Here's the back of the pelvis. And underneath you have 2 sit bones. They're called ischial tuberosities. If you care to know the anatomical language, you certainly don't need to know it. But take a moment to just shift your weight side to side and to feel those sit bones kind of press into the seat underneath you. Feeling your own pelvis that's inside your body, not just looking at a pelvis on the screen, not just hearing about it, but feel it in your own body. Feel your pelvis. And now begin to tuck it under, round it. Notice what happens through the spine. And then untuck it. Imagine this pelvic space. You see where it holds the pelvic organs. Imagine this is a bowl and it's carrying your favorite comforting tea or soup. And you gently spill it forward. And then you tuck it under and maybe you spill it backward. So just noticing how your pelvis is moving in your own body. And where is a big tendency that we get stuck is that we sit in this tucked position. You see the tailbone in the back is tucked under. And what happens is this doesn't support the spine very well. And it also collapses the pelvis. So we don't get blood flow and circulation, lymph through the pelvic organs and the tissues. And eventually this, can get kind of sticky in the SI joint area and cause some other problems as well. But our spine naturally has curves, and we want these curves. They are our shock absorption system. You can see this picture here of the spine. And if you follow it up, the low back gently moves inward, and then the upper back moves outward, and then the neck moves back inward. We want to support this structure of the spine. And when we're tucked under, if you tuck under right now, you can kind of feel your low back pressing out, maybe straightening or rounding. And if we get stuck in this holding pattern over time, this can create some compression and icky, sticky feelings in the low back. Okay, so how we want to sit, let's talk about that. And I will say that this slouching position is a holding pattern. And this can feel what is most safe. You're protected. You're protecting the most sensitive, vulnerable parts of you. You're tucking your heart in. And so opening up your heart, becoming more vulnerable can feel like a really uncomfortable position to be in. So what if that's you? What I would say to that is titration. And titration means one drop at a time. I think it comes from, it's a scientific term, and I think it comes from biology work, where you have two substances and you add in one drop of this and one drop of that, and you slowly over time create a new substance. So what this looks like is maybe finding a posture upright, and how I will show you in a minute, and breathing, finding those breathing exercises. Maybe you visualize the diaphragm and the pelvic floor, and you practice taking deep, mindful breaths. Maybe you do that for a minute every morning. And what this does is introducing this slowly over time. You can gradually pick that up to 2 minutes, to 5 minutes. And maybe you begin to introduce it more throughout your day. But what this does is it's letting the nervous system know that you're safe. It's letting the nervous system know that you are safe to exist in the world here. I had to do this when I decided that I hated shaving my legs. I hate shaving my legs. I always cut myself, and I just hate doing it. It's a pain, literally and figuratively. And it's just, I feel like a waste of my time. And I know that this is not everybody. I know that this is maybe even controversial feeling. But I also hated that I felt so insecure about my hairy legs. And I mean, I got dysregulated about it. I would go to the beach and I would just want to hide. But I want to go to the beach. I love the beach. And so I had to slowly go into safe spaces for a short amount of time with hairy legs for my nervous system to recognize that, oh, no one's reacting the way I guess that I thought in my head that they would react. No one is throwing food at me and telling me I'm gross. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I guess that's what I imagined happening in my head. And so over time, of feeling safe in my body with hairy legs, I became more comfortable in public spaces with hairy legs. And I still shave my legs from time to time. This is an ongoing thing, but that's just an example of titrating, of just taking a moment to let my nervous system know that it's safe and continually doing that, rewriting that neural pathway. We have neuroplasticity, which means we can change these patterns in our brain, which is pretty amazing. So how to sit? Okay, so we have the pelvis. So this is the front. This is the back. And you have these two sit bones. Ideally, you want to untuck your pelvis. And that means freeing the tailbone, letting it free or not sitting on it. And get a sense that you're sitting on the front ends of those sit bones. And for me, it's easier if I move the flesh out from underneath my sit bones, and this kind of supports this propping up. And it's just slightly, barely tilted forward. You're spilling a little bit of tea out of your bowl. And you might also know, or also recognize here, that as I'm sitting like this supports that inner curve of the low back, but it also provides support for my pelvic organs. My bladder can rest on the pubic bone. And I will say the pelvic floor is strong. It is meant to support the organs, but we can sit here in kind of an effortless way for our body. And it may not feel effortless at first. Okay, I recognize that. But this provides, again, support for the pelvic organs, support for the spine, and we can balance our spine with one point of gravity from here, which means like if you are slouching or leaning or whatever, there are multiple lines of gravity and your body has to actually work harder to hold itself up. And when you unlock the pelvis, you widen through the sit bones, and this allows circulation, blood flow, and lymph to flow through the pelvic organs and the tissues. We spend a lot of our time sitting in our modern lives, whether that's in the car or at an office. And so our pelvis holds our entire upper body weight all day. And we want to make sure it's getting circulation. And if that posture is not going to work for you right now, you can try that titration or take moments to stand more often if you sit a lot. You can even stand and do a little bit of cat-cow movement. And if you're wondering what is cat-cow, I will show you how to do it on the chair, because I know that coming onto the ground isn't comfortable for a lot of bodies. So you can do this seated, and we kind of did this as you flick the tailbone back. You can pull the hands on the thighs towards the hips, elbows reach back broad across the collarbones. And this is a big inhale. That breath is going all the way down to stretch out the pelvic floor as you lift. Exhale, tuck and round your spine like a cat. And if you're like, oh, but I'm still sitting, then let's change the orientation. Change the chair around. And changing our orientation also changes the effect of gravity. If I put my hands on the chair and bring my torso parallel to the ground, gravity is pulling from another direction. This unloads my pelvic floor and gives it a break. What that means is it pulls my organs towards my belly, and it's not weighing on my pelvis, my pelvic floor. You can bend your knees here and really flick your tailbone up. Think about broadening through those sit bones, stretching. Drop the belly. Try to lift your chin out of your chest. On your exhale, tuck the tailbone, round, push the chair away, tuck the chin in, rounding like a cat. And you can just move through this a couple of times. This is so good for spine mobility. Okay. And like I said, you can also do this on hands and knees. Okay. I think I've touched everything there that I want to. Let's go to pillar number 4 for pelvic health. Movement. Surprise, surprise. So I'm talking specifically about pelvic floor muscles in this next little bit, but this is true for all the muscles in your body. A healthy muscle or healthy muscles and tissues need circulation of blood flow and lymphatics, as well as relaxation and strengthening contraction. So sometimes it's hard to know what your body needs when you should be exercising and pushing yourself, and when you should be resting, because rest is so important when it comes to health and healing. And that is, again, that intuitive part that comes in, is learning how to read the messages of your body. A healthy muscle can both lengthen, like if you take a look at my bicep, it can lengthen. Now it's long, it's being stretched long, and it's relaxed, as well as shorten. It's shortening here and contracting. A muscle that is too tight or too relaxed or lax are both weak muscles. For example, let's use my hand for an example. If it is too tight, I cannot open it. It's contracted, it's gripping, and I can't use it properly. If it doesn't open, I can't pick anything up. It's kind of useless. Same thing if it's too relaxed, if there's not enough tone, I can't grip. I still can't pick anything up with this hand. These are both weak muscles. And because everything is connected, spot treating or just doing Kegels or something like that alone is not going to give us what we are looking for. Our feet and foot health is connected to our pelvic health. One thing that I have noticed is that people with pelvic floor issues have flat feet. And I'm not saying that if you have flat feet, you have pelvic floor issues, but usually there's a connection there. Our feet are connected to our pelvic floor through fascia, which is a connective tissue that surrounds everything: our muscles, our tissues, our organs. And there's a big myofascial meridian line that starts in our feet. It moves up the legs into the pelvic floor and the pelvis, and it moves all the way up our body into our head. Our pelvic floor is also connected to our jaw in a couple of different ways. So if you are a jaw clencher, or if you have tension in your jaw, then you definitely have tension in your pelvic floor. Also your inner thighs, those are an extension of your pelvic floor muscles. We have to look at all of these things. Also the back of your legs, your hamstring muscles, those are attached to your sit bones. If those are really tight, then it pulls your pelvis into this tucked position where it's collapsed and it's not getting that blood flow that you need. Same thing if you're doing a bunch of sit-ups or crunches, that rectus abdominis muscle in the front, that connects to the front of the pubis, the front of the pelvis. And if that's too tight, that also pulls your pelvis into this tucked position. So you have to work with the entire body because one thing affects the other. And even right now, if you have one of your myofascial balls, myofascial release balls, or a tennis ball, you can begin to roll out your feet, the bottoms of your feet. Our feet hold so much tension. This can be a great way to give yourself some pelvic self-care at work or while you're watching TV. So let's take a look at this further. And I want to say, if you're already practicing movement or have a movement modality in place, then you're already doing great things for your pelvic health because movement is vital. So these are general conditions related to muscles that are too relaxed. And again, there's a lot more than this, but these are just general common conditions. If they are too relaxed, so this is my limp hand that can't grab onto anything. If this is the pelvic floor, this could result in stress incontinence, which means leaking urine when sneezing or feces, when sneezing, running, coughing, jumping, etc. And I say not always here because it's not always muscles that are too lax that are causing this. This can also happen because muscles are too tight. Another common general condition is pelvic organ prolapse. And again, I say not always because you can also have a prolapse with muscles that are too tight. And what a prolapse is it is a displacement of the pelvic organs. It can feel like a heaviness in your pelvic floor. And there are different degrees, but it can feel like your bladder, your uterus, or your rectum are going to fall out. General conditions, common conditions related to muscles that are too tight in the pelvic floor. Also stress incontinence, which is the leaking when you sneeze, run, jump. And it's a good indicator that it's because muscles are too tight is if this is paired with constipation or trouble going to the bathroom. And also urge incontinence. I didn't even know that I had urge incontinence until I learned what it was. So urge incontinence is when you have this intense urge or feeling like I'm about to pee my pants. I have to make it to the bathroom right now. You get to the bathroom and your bladder is not full, only a little bit comes out. And this is very common. It's a neurological symptom. Your bladder is sending signals to your brain that I need to release, I gotta go, I'm full. And then you go to release and it's not full. And this can happen whenever you stick your key in the door to your home, or we create these habits of urinating at particular places of time. And this creates this rhythm in our bladder. And it can be challenged and it can be fixed. And this is always paired with a pelvic floor that's too tight. Irritable bowel syndrome, and this is constipation, a fluctuation of constipation and diarrhea. Vaginismus, which is pain with penetration. Vulvodynia, pelvic pain. Interstitial cystitis, pain with urination, with peeing. And I will mention, because someone asked prior about pain with menstruation, and that is usually a hormonal, you need more hormonal support. Our cycles aren't just when we bleed, but we have a 28-ish, give or take a few days, day cycle. The feminine reflects the infradian rhythm, just like the masculine reflects the circadian rhythm, which is a 24-hour period, the sun, right? It's that 24-hour, that day period. And if you know, men, mostly their hormonal cycles are the same every single 24 hours. Where the feminine We reflect the lunar cycle, the infradian rhythm, that 28-day-ish give or take cycle. So our hormones move and fluctuate throughout those days. And our society, this masculine society, does not support that. And so this causes hormonal imbalance because we're not caring for ourselves the way that our bodies need, because we're not taught again. And a great place to start is making sure that you're resting when you're bleeding. The first day, second day, skip the gym, skip your workouts, and take a nap instead if you can. But rest, I mean, pre-cook your meals before you know your bleed is coming, so you don't have to cook. Really plan and prep for this space so you can relax. I wouldn't plan any social engagements. Your energy is depleted. Your body is focusing on shedding that lining. And that does take a lot of energy. So that's one of the best things you can do to start nourishing your body's endocrine system. And the endocrine system is what releases hormones. Okay, hormones are a deep topic. So yeah, I can't get too much into it today. So coming back to a felt sense of our pelvic floor. It is quite common that we become completely disconnected from our pelvis. And this can happen for many reasons. Sometimes it's just survival. Again, our culture doesn't provide us the tools we need to care for our pelvic floor. So we completely disconnect it from it. And then we have no felt sense of our pelvic floor. When we are disconnected from our root, we are also disconnected from our deepest sense of self and security. And what do I mean by the felt sense of our pelvic floor? Why don't you wave your arm with me? You can take your arm and just swing it back and forth. Okay. Do you feel that? Yeah. Your brain recognizes that you have an arm and that your arm is moving. Okay. And now do that same breath that we did, visualizing that expansion in your pelvic floor on your inhale. Did you feel your pelvic floor moving? Did your brain recognize your pelvic floor and its movement? And it's okay if you didn't feel that. That's very common. And it takes a lot of intentionality to bring that back online and to reclaim that felt sense. So one exercise we're going to do here, you're going to take whatever tool you were able to come by, whether that's your ball of sock, your little hand towel, maybe you have a tennis ball or a myofascial release ball. And what you're going to do, I'm going to give you a little bit more anatomy here. So I have a pelvis that has a vagina, but this works just as well with a pelvis that has a penis and a prostate. In fact, I have my partner Luke do this all the time, and he's always like, whoa. Yeah, it just brings a new sense of awareness to the muscles in our pelvic floor. So we have a lot of muscles down here, and it can get confusing. So I like to think of it as, and this is what I was taught as well by many great teachers, is to think of it as having 3 layers. So you can think, here's the front, here's the pubis, and find this on your own body. Again, feeling this in your own body is really important. We have layer 1 that connects to the pubis. and it moves all the way from the front to the back to the tailbone. It kind of looks like an infinity symbol or a figure eight. It connects to that front pubis. It wraps around the front genitalia, either the penis or the vaginal opening. It connects here in the center at the perineum. And then it wraps back around the anal sphincter and connects to the tailbone. Okay, that's layer one. Layer two connects from side to side from each sit bone. So it goes from the side and it goes to the center, that perineum, that tissue, that connective tissue there, and over to the other tailbone. Okay. Layer three, I'm going to take out the internal organs of my pelvis here to show you layer three. Layer three is this big horseshoe-shaped muscle inside the bottom. And this is the deepest, most layer that moves with our respiratory diaphragm. In fact, this is called the pelvic diaphragm. And this pelvis is based off of a dead pelvis. Our pelvic floor doesn't actually hang like a hammock like this. It naturally has a dome. And it stretches, again, like a trampoline and expands wide on our inhales, on our deep inhales. And then it domes back up, okay? And usually it's these first two layers that get really tense and hold a lot of tension. Just like you carry tension in your neck and your back and you need a deep tissue massage to kind of roll those out. That's what we're gonna do here. And this is a great tool, a great exercise to help you come back to that felt sense of your pelvic floor. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your tool and you're going to bring it to the perineum. Now, the perineum is that connective tissue. It's behind the front genitalia and in front of the anal sphincter. Before I started doing this work, I only knew this place as the taint. And maybe that's you too. For some reason now that word feels so derogatory, but I don't know why. But maybe that's what you know it as too. So find this area and you can use your hands. And I want you to know that your touch on your pelvic floor can be therapeutic. This is not about pleasure, but even if you experience pleasure, there is nothing wrong with that. If you feel shame or something come up, maybe just be curious about that and explore that further if you feel comfortable. But that's another topic, is discovering or processing our relationship to pleasure. But not all touch to your pelvic floor is sexual. It can be therapeutic, okay? And just like a back massage, you may feel pleasure. You may feel pleasure. This might feel really releasing, okay? So what you're gonna do, you're gonna find that seat that I showed you earlier. You're gonna keep your legs uncrossed, maybe even wide. Your feet are firmly planted on the ground. Okay, feel the sit bones. Maybe pull that flesh out from underneath your sit bones and find that perineum. Maybe find it with your fingers first. And you're going to set that ball on the perineum and sit on top of it. And be mindful. I know for me at first, I was always putting it underneath my vaginal opening. And that's not going to be the right sensation that we're going for. So scoot it back underneath that perineum. And you're going to sit with it like this. And my pelvic model doesn't give way, but you're going to slowly absorb your tool that you're sitting on up into your pelvis. And it's going to help release those tight muscles. Go ahead and do this right now if you can. And I want you to slow down your breath. because our slow breath can help facilitate that softening of the muscles. Big breath in, sweeping in through the nose. A nice, smooth, long, controlled exhale, either out through the nose or out through the mouth, like you're blowing through an imaginary straw or blowing out candles. And visualize those muscles with every exhale, wrapping around and hugging the ball. And spend a few breaths here. And again, if this is painful in any way, you might want to find something softer. You can put a blanket over your ball, or maybe you use something smaller. Maybe you go down to a little hand towel. Again, I used a yoga strap that I could roll and unroll. You can use a necktie or a scarf, something that you can adjust the size of. And again, this is something you can add to your morning routine. With a few mindful breaths, maybe as you're eating breakfast or sitting down and having coffee. Maybe you do this a few times a week. Maybe you go up to 3 or 4 minutes. And again, a lot of us have those really tight muscles. And before we can strengthen muscles, we have to first relax them. And this is why this tool or this practice is so beneficial too, because not only are you helping relax that tension in the muscles, but you're also helping your body connect, your brain connect to these muscles again, to feel your pelvis, to feel your pelvic floor. This is the foundation to pelvic floor healing, is regaining that felt sense of your pelvic floor. And once you do that, then you can begin a self-care practice, movement, breath, strengthening, to strengthen and bring vitality and wellness back to your pelvic floor. Whenever you're ready, if you haven't already, go ahead and release the ball out from underneath you. And take a deep breath and notice how your pelvic floor feels after that. Does it feel lighter? Does it feel different in any way? What do you notice in your body? Okay. A few other resources that I want to give you. I already mentioned In the Flow by Elisa VT. This is great if you want to get to know your hormones better. Whether you menstruate, you used to menstruate, or you just want to get more in touch with your feminine nature, then this is a great book. Another really good one is called Hot Pants by Isabel Gauthier and Lisa Venebaum. It is do-it-yourself gynecology and herbal remedies. Lots of great resources in there. If you have experienced sexual abuse and trauma, Flowers in the Dark, Reclaiming Your Power to Heal from Trauma with Mindfulness. It's really good. And if you want to begin tracking your cycles, whether you menstruate or not, it can be great for following your hormonal fluctuations and even planning for them better. All right, if you know when your bleed is coming and you can meal plan and prep all your meals and make sure you have chocolate on stock, all of those things, like that's just an example. We have, I mean, our cycle is not just when we bleed, but it is the entire 28-ish days. But this is one of the best resources that I have found. It's the Cycles Journal. Oh gosh. Oh, and you can just go to cyclesjournal.com, and it has been invaluable in my own journey to reclaiming my cyclical nature and the way that we reflect the cycles of nature, that we are nature. It's amazing. So what do? I teach integrative pelvic wellness. Integrative pelvic wellness heals the root, both literally and figuratively, by recognizing that the pelvis is a part of a much larger system, the body, and that it is all intricately connected. I employ anatomy-based body practice and inner dream journeying to help you recover vibrant well-being in your pelvic center. My goal is to allow you to nourish the physical, sensual, and creative forces of your pelvic cradle. Integrative pelvic wellness balances research-based practice, shamanic journeys into the womb space, and self-empowered body work to awaken a full body agency and knowing. And again, I want to make a note on this womb space. Even if you have had a womb and you don't have a womb anymore, this is still a very potent energetic space to work with. And even if you don't have a womb and you have transitioned or whatever your journey may be, and you just want to explore connecting to your feminine self, then that's wonderful. You are welcome here. So I want to share this quote by one of my teachers. Take a big breath before we read this together. Yoga should be the first resort. Here's why. Practicing yoga cultivates self-awareness and sensitivity toward your body. It isn't just another set of exercises you do. Yoga fosters subtle observation and awareness of your body's mechanics and energetics. It gives you experiential insight into the unique form and shape of your individual embodiment. It allows you to understand what is happening as it is happening and gives you the tools to adjust your practice to constantly fluctuating conditions, moment by moment. It is one thing to have a general conceptual understanding of the anatomy of the muscles. It's something else to be able to locate, sense, and work with the individual muscles in your own body. Take a breath in and then let it go. Just kind of digest what we just read together. Okay, next page. Body awareness is key to properly diagnosing ailments. No doctor in the world will be able to tell you what it's like for you to feel pain or tension or relief or any other sensation. This is information only you can access. This type of insight is critical to making a proper diagnosis. Yoga combines external conceptual knowledge with the internal experiential understanding that only you can access. Yoga is empowering. It empowers you to take an active role in your own healing rather than handing over responsibility to a doctor or someone else. You hold primary authority over your body, and you need to exercise that authority by exploring, observing, and learning about yourself. Yoga helps you shed your self-imposed states and empowers you to emerge, to mature, and to take responsibility for yourself. Take a breath, digest that. I'm going to plug my laptop in before I lose you. I'm also going to take a drink of water if you want to join me in taking a drink of something. One more page of this quote. Yoga provides tools for the healing of many conditions and provides a complex and nuanced set of tools you can fine-tune to address your specific circumstances in a non-invasive, holistic way. The world of yoga stretches wide and deep in many directions. You can use it to explore and address a particular issue, or you can embrace it more fully and let it carry you to a transformative life. And this is from one of my teachers, Leslie Howard, in her book, Pelvic Liberation. So I want to extend an invitation to you. This is my invitation to you to start your holistic pelvic wellness journey with me in my virtual 8-week Root to Rise pelvic wellness immersion. This allows you to start or continue your self-care and pelvic wellness journey with a group and more support, with guidance along the way. You have access to all the tools and videos for a year, including the replays of all of our lives, yoga classes, meditations, and access to the private Facebook group and or Slack group if Facebook is not your jam, which I understand. By the end of 8 weeks, you will be set up, hopefully, with momentum and can always reach out and lean on the community to keep you going. So what can you expect in this immersion? What does this look like? Weekly 2-hour Zoom calls every Sunday evening from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Can't make it. Life happens. I get it. So that's why I'm making replays available and uploading them to the membership portal. This can also help lessen the feeling of overwhelm, so you can move through this at your own pace. And if you don't want to move through each module in 1 week, that gives you a bit more space to move through it at your own pace. And I want to come to the lives. I want you to be able to come to those, even if you're not up to date with the weekly modules. I want those to still be something that's available if you want to come and be a part of that live participation. So there are weekly live and recorded practices. Every Monday night, we'll have a live yoga class, meditations, somatic practices, journaling and reflecting, dream time journeys, and more. A private Facebook group. Yes, I am. Sorry, my partner just popped in here. So a private Facebook group and or Slack, like I mentioned, you can share your experiences and connect for support. access to all replays, the private group and course content for an entire year, and access to this program for the lowest price this will ever be offered for. This is the first time I am sharing this offering, so it is only going to be $297 or 4 payments of $80. I do have scholarships available for those in the BIPOC community, LGBTQIA+ community, or those going through financial hardship. If that is you, then please reach out to me. This first cohort is starting on July 23rd, which is a week from the day that I am recording this workshop. There are no what is the word I'm looking for? There are no deadlines, but recognize that the later you sign up, you may miss on some of the live gathering opportunities. So just be aware that if you miss the sign up before the 23rd, then you may miss those Sundays and Mondays that we gather. So you have the option to jump in for the payment of $297, or you can wait until I open the doors and offer it again in the future, in which case the price will go up because I might revamp it depending on how this goes and the feedback I get from you on how I can make this better. So please let me know if you have any questions at all. I'm going to link the link to the page with more information about this immersion. And if you have any other questions about pelvic wellness or anything else that was mentioned in the workshop, then please reach out to me with that as well. You can reach me at info@meganmathersyoga.com, or you can find me on social media. I have other offerings as well. I have accessible chair pelvic health yoga for free on YouTube. I have a pelvic floor and more yoga membership for $9 a month. And I teach yoga, pelvic floor yoga virtually every Wednesday morning. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to connecting with you all more. I'm so thankful for all of you.